Okay, so this method is for if you have a fraying fabric or a constructed fabric. By constructed fabric I mean as if you've made your own patchworked piece of fabric like this maybe. It's easiest then to make a fitted cover for this. You need to print the heart shape again from the PDF. Make sure you print it out at 100% like this. Cut it out. Remember, please, that the edge of the template is the stitching line. It's not the cutting line. So when you're laying this down onto your fabric, make sure you've got a piece of fabric that's big enough to comfortably fit the template around. So here I've got a piece of constructed fabric, which is going to be the front surface of my heart, and I've got a plain piece which is going to be the back. So we lay here, we lay the two pieces together. Lay the construction piece down first, face up, and place the other piece face down onto the top of it, as you would with most sewing techniques. You're then taking your heart template. Remember, this is the stitching line, but we're going to mark around the edge of this where we're going to stitch. How you mark, again, is up to you. Some people like to use tacking stitches, some people like to use tailor's chalk. So we mark around the edge of this, and then we stitch along that line. So you should end up with something that looks like this. So I've got the heart template, and I've got the stitching line around the edge of this. You don't want to make it too big. If you make it too big, it'll be floppy on your heart. So you can see from that side here where I've stitched this. Now the idea with that is that we've got to get rid of all this excess fabric. So I'm going to cut off the excess fabric. So I'm discarding this bit. So here's my heart cut round. Remember, you need to snip in here. You'll know all about this, cutting and slashing here to allow that, when it turns out, to sit properly. So I'm snipping in to that point, and I'm going to just take the tail fabric off there up to the stitching. Be careful not to cut the stitching, obviously. So that you get a nice curve on here, it's best just to trim like this down to the stitching line. Again, be careful you don't cut the stitching. Now this is going to be the front of my heart, and this is going to be the back, and I want to make a hole in the back here so that I can turn the whole thing inside out. The reason for stitching right the way round rather than leaving a gap and turning it round is that you can get a much neater finish. But it's up to you. You can do that way. So I'm now going to cut the back fabric. I'm going to slash along the back fabric. Careful not to cut the front surface. I'm going to make a little V in here, and I'm going to cut here from side to side, there and here. The other reason for not leaving just a little gap is that you then wouldn't be able to fit your heart inside it. So I'm now going to turn this inside out, making sure I get a nice point at the end here and around here, and you can see the heart starting to form. Make sure you push those corners out nicely, and there I've got my basic heart shape. Now the easiest way of getting your cushion to fit into that is by putting these two curved surfaces in first. If you put that end in, you really struggle to get the end in. So put these two curved ends in first to here, push them up well, and then you can get a hold of the tail end here, pull that across and flip that inside here. Pull this up. You can then stitch this together here. If it frays really badly, as you might find on this one here, I've had to use quite large sewing to stitch it together. The simplest way then is just to cover it with a piece of piece of ribbon or an extra piece of fabric that you could then stitch down. You could stitch a name onto it or whatever, but you can cover that over. The reason, as I said earlier, if you only make a little hole here, you won't be able to get your heart to stuff right inside it. It needs to be a tight fit, it needs to be snug, and so you can overlap that slightly and put it in. Okay, there we are. That heart is now ready for decorating.